Well, we're still at the OR Tambo International Airport, and of course this is where those 14 drug mules have been caught over the past 2 months, as we've been indicating from the police side and the work that they've been doing, and also considering the intelligence that they have been receiving, the informants, very, very important to that work that they are doing, the collaboration as well amongst the various counterparts, including the work being done through Interpol. But there's also another department that's doing very, very important work when it comes to social ills in the country and when it comes to children who are in distress, and that is the Department of Social Development. Sometimes what happens is that some of these drug mules, especially women, are arrested in foreign countries, they fall pregnant, or perhaps are arrested while pregnant and then later on have to give birth. And once their child is classified as a distressed child in a foreign country, the Department of Social Development would have to intervene. A number of children that are currently or that have been repatriated from the various countries where their mothers have been arrested. Joining me now is Lumka Oliphant, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Social Development. Lumka, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. One of the issues, of course, is these children that are in distress in foreign countries, and you have an update for us.
Yes, we recently repatriated one in the Philippines last month. We are working with DERCO at the moment to repatriate a child who is 5 years old, who is in a Mauritius prison where the mother was also arrested for drug trafficking.
Yeah. And then there's a matter in the Philippines as well?
No, we have already repatriated that baby from the Philippines. It was last month when we repatriated that child.
Yeah. So the stats that we have currently, Brazil 3, we have also Mauritius now 2. It was at 1 a bit earlier on. And then you have the other countries as well, including Canada as well as Peru. But excuse me. But tell us about what happens once the mother has given birth in a foreign prison.
Remember, we are working with different departments. So when a mother has given birth in a foreign country, you find that many countries do not have the facilities that we have as South Africa. Maybe sometimes if a mother does not, the child does not come back to South Africa, that child will then be integrated in that country. But here at home, we work with DERCO, we work with the Department of Home Affairs, we work with the Department of Transport through SAA, so that when we do this entire process, we are all aligned. What happens is that through the embassy, the International Social Service here in South Africa will be notified of a child who is in distress in a foreign country and the circumstances around that. The ones that you mentioned from Brazil and the ones that you mentioned recently from Senegal, the mother was incarcerated for trafficking drugs. So what then happens is that we will be in touch with the family here in South Africa. Firstly, the mother would have to tell us what are her intentions with the child, who is the right person to look after the child in South Africa. So that's when the psychosocial support will start. And because remember, we are also about strengthening families, about protecting children, about also prevention of any social ill. So once that has been done and she agrees and the families here in South Africa also agree to look after the child whilst the mother is in that country, we then start the processes of the child protection system kicking in, and then the child will then be integrated in the country with a particular family.
Yeah, and sadly also they're integrated in a country that has a big problem when it comes to drugs. We've seen a number of rehabilitation centers being set up, and some of those rehabilitation centers illegally being set up.
Yes, we do have a problem with illegal treatment centers. We have gone on a very rigorous process in the department where we are trying to clamp down on illegal treatment centers. We have found around the country there's about 500 of those whom we are preparing to shut down, because also there's a process to just, we can't just shut down. There's a process that we must take that is legal, but letters are coming out. Recently there was a man in Durban who was also sentenced for running an illegal center. And we are saying as a department that families must be able to understand and ask questions whether they are registered, because there's a process to registration, because they are NPOs. While we are saying that we need the NPOs, we can't also put people's lives at risk.
Yeah. So as a parent right now watching this interview, I have a child who unfortunately is hooked by these drugs, and I want to get my child the right rehabilitation center or treatment center where they'll be able to assist them. How do I know whether this organization that I am approaching is registered?
You can be able to get that from us, because all of this should be registered. We have a list of NPOs that are registered legally and operating. Government also, though not so many, government also has its own rehabilitation centers around the country, but we rely a lot on NPOs who we support as well to run the treatment centers. But to just be direct, you can be able to contact us and just find out whether this treatment center that you want to take your child to is registered, is legally operating, and everything is followed to the letter. Because remember, there are certain things that they must be followed. There must be a program that is also registered. There must be a lot of things, food and nutrition. Everything must be there, because you are dealing with people's lives. Therefore, this becomes very important.
In terms of cost, is there a cap that the Department of Social Development knows of? That perhaps may be a red flag. Some people I've heard have paid up to about 5,000, 10,000 a month.
Yeah, so with us, you need then to just check if this is the amount that you should be paying, you know, and just to be sure that you are getting the right service.
Okay, let's then speak about the social ill of drugs itself, because for the drugs to come into the country, that means that there is a market. And how do we stem out that particular market, and how also children fall prey to these drug dealers?
It is quite a very complicated syndicate, Aldrin. I went to Brazil in about 2016, and I saw so many young women from different areas, as far as in Tunjambili at the time, rural areas. You also got students. You know, a student who was thinking that they will go to Brazil on Friday, come back and go to class, but then they were used as a decoy, you know, to traffic drugs. So we can't stop educating people. We can't stop talking about the drugs, you know, in the country. That also be careful, you know, on what you are, you know, on what you do and the things that people approach you for. And it can be also very complicated, because some of the women that we had children fetched from, they were in relationships with these guys. And they go to such extent...
With the drug dealers?
With the drug dealers, yes. They go to the extent of using even their girlfriends who is pregnant, you know, as a modus operandi. So we can't stop educating people and telling people that once you step out of the country and you are trafficking drugs, you cease to be a South African, you know, in terms of the laws of that country will kick in. Because I've found that South Africans also think that the rights that they have here in the country, they will apply when they get to the other side.
Do you think maybe that could be one of the reasons for that we have such a high drug rate, that our law is not as stern as laws in other countries?
We can't say that they are not as stern as in other countries. We are a constitution that is human rights based. So that is what we will always stand for, that we cannot decide that some of the things that we are not going to do. It's just that poverty at times is also an issue, that people find themselves doing drugs, and just naivety, you know, with others. As I was saying to you, that I've seen young women who are, you know, university students, you know, and they just decide that they will take this chance and they'll go, and they think it's a trip, but then they are used as a decoy to traffic drugs.
Yeah, and a bit earlier on we heard from Lieutenant General Musigidi that actually they get up to about 30,000, 35,000 just to traffic these drugs. Thank you so much. Lumka Oliphant is the spokesperson for the Department of Social Development.